After carefully changing boats several times, Chris and the others disembarked quite a distance from Poseidon. That area was a residential neighborhood lined with small stone houses. In a section where the waterway was dammed, there were several kids playing in the water. One of the boys greeted Martis as he came out of the water.
Hello, Martis, my dad is out right now.
Yeah,
As the boy spoke to Martis, Martis replied curtly.
but he should be back soon.
If you say so, Martis, then it must be true.
The boy smiled happily. Then, he turned his gaze towards Chris and the others.
Who are they?
The boy asked as he returned his gaze to Martis.
Are they related to dads and your work?
Well, yes.
Nice to meet you, I'm Lamek, Rowan's only son.
After introducing himself, the boy who called himself Lamek bowed politely.
Please wait at home until my dad comes back. This way.
Lamek said with a smile and started walking at the front. Although he looked only about 5 years old, he walked quickly and with a firm step.
This is it.
It was a small stone house. There were several houses built in exactly the same style lined up around it. There isn't even a nameplate. Chris wondered how the people living here distinguished their own houses.
Martis.
A tall man with a beard waved at Martis from across the street. He was completely bald and his belly is slightly stuck out. When Martis raised his hand, the man came over quickly. The figure wearing a green outfit and an apron reminded some kind of craftsman.
Hey, Dad.
Lamek said happily, peeking out from the entrance.
Oh, Lamek, you were back, too.
Yeah, when I was swimming at Moral, I happened to meet Martis and his friends. So, I invited them to wait at our house until you came back, Dad.
I see, thank you.
Lamek's father smiled. Then, he shook hands with Martis.
I apologize for the delay in introducing myself. My name is Rowan.
Lamek's father said, bowing his head as he turned to Chris and the others.
I used to work with Martis in the central office of the TOs.
Really? Is that so? Clare exclaimed in surprise. So, are you originally from the underground world? Rowan nodded and gestured towards the entrance.
It's not ideal to chat here, so please come inside for now.
In contrast to the traditional stone exterior, the interior was modernly designed. Moreover, it was more spacious than one could imagine from the outside. On the first floor, there is a spacious living room with a table and a couch. At the back, there is also a dining kitchen. To the left of the kitchen, there is a staircase that goes down. The floor was covered with blue tiles, creating a cool overall atmosphere.
Welcome back.
A woman came up from the back stairs.
Hey Mom, I'm home.
Lamek ran over and hugged her.
Thank you for always taking care of my husband.
The woman greeted while stroking Lamek's head. She was tall with fair skin, and her long black hair reached down to her waist.
This is my wife, Alyosha.
Rowan introduced the woman. Then, he told his wife that he needs to talk with the guests, and guided Chris and the others to downstairs. At the bottom of the stairs, there was a hallway that extended, with several rooms branching off to the left and right. The group was led to the room at the very end. It was a small and cozy room. On the desk in the corner, blueprints, equipment, and tools were haphazardly piled up. Saying, "Please wait a moment," Rowan began to sift through the items on the desk. Then, taking out a white ball that looked like a baseball, he spun it around. Suddenly, the ceiling opened, and several kutea descended from above. Kutea were arranged in a circular formation, and in the center, a small crystal disc, resembling a manhole cover, was floating. Told by Rowan, "Please have a seat," everyone sat around the disc in a circle. Bibi was cradled in Chris's lap. Once everyone was seated, Martis introduced each person to Rowan. "So, you are living in Atlias now, right?" After Martis finished the introductions, Clare immediately asked Rowan. Rowan nodded and replied, Yes. Why did you decide to leave the Teos and live here?
Because I met Alyosha.
Rowan said with a shy smile, scratching the tip of his nose.
Originally, I was stationed here as a liaison with the Teos, just like Martis. The purpose is to share the strengths of the underground city and the underwater city to make Earth a better planet. As you probably know, such exchanges have been going on between all cities for some time.
Of course, I know that. So, you met your wife and decided to live here, right? Rowan nodded. But you're still working as a representative of the Teos, aren't you?
No, I married Alyosha, gained citizenship here, and I have become a citizen of the underwater world. Therefore, I no longer carry out missions for the central office of the Teos as an underground person.
Oh, really? Then why are you still in contact with Martis? Clare pressed, looking back and forth between Martis and Rowan.
Well,
after glancing at Martis once, Rowan continued.
Since I started living here as an underwater citizen, I've begun to see various aspects that I couldn't see when I was an expatriate.
Oh, I see. For example?
Well, let's see. For example, the underwater city was one of the cities on Earth that possessed advanced thoughts and consciousness. Just like the underground cities and the haze cities. That's why the underground cities maintained a deep connection and relationship with the underwater cities. However, in reality, there are many beings with lower dimensional consciousness, and conflicts are occurring in various places within the underwater cities. And it seems that the Underwater City Council has been covering this up without reporting it to the Galactic Federation.
Oh, really? Clare asked back, surprised to an exaggerated degree. Did the Galactic Federation not notice that at all? Rowan nodded silently. Then, after wiping his forehead, he looked up and saw Clare.
To be honest, the Galactic Federation wasn't aware that information was being manipulated by dark forces until they realized it. I understand that the trigger for noticing the manipulation was thanks to all of you here.
Rowan said as he looked around at everyone, to which Clare proudly replied, Well, that's true. But you and Martis had already come here before that, right? Didn't you notice anything then?
I'm ashamed to admit I didn't realize it.
Clare pressed, and Rowan looked down apologetically.
However, Martis had certainly been suspicious for some time. The reports from the Underwater City Council regarding us were, in fact, more virtuous and pure than what we were experiencing firsthand. I didn't realize it at the time, though,
said Rowan, turning his gaze to Martis.
And it was around that time that the topic of the crystal elements came up. As the time for Ascension approached, the dark forces were desperately trying to obtain the crystal elements to prevent it. Naturally, the Underwater City Council is also working hard to ensure that the dark forces do not take the crystal elements from them. However, we believe that the Underwater City Council itself may not be trustworthy. We cannot deny the possibility of intervention by the dark forces. So now, as an underwater citizen, while working as a stonemason, I am exploring within my means and providing information to Martis.
Hearing Rowan's explanation, Clare huffed, folded her arms and fell silent. Then, from the side, Sana asked a question.
So, that means you are a spy, aren't you?
No, as I mentioned earlier, I am no longer a person from the central office of the Teos. So, I am not acting on a mission from there. I am merely passing information to Martis on a personal basis.
But in the end, it doesn't change the fact that you are engaging in espionage, does it? Isn't that dangerous?
Rowan wiped his forehead again and nodded a few times.
Yes, it is certainly dangerous. If the Underwater City Council were to find out, there would be no guarantee of my life.
Then why do you cooperate to such an extent?
Because it is my mission.
Rowan smiled.
to protect the Earth from dark forces and to guide it correctly towards ascension. By doing so, I aim to protect not only my family but also the people of the underwater cities, the underground cities, and all life that coexists on this Earth from annihilation. Even if my power is minimal, I believe it is my mission to contribute to that cause.
Hearing Rowan's resolve, Chris felt a tightening in his chest. At the same time, a sense of fear grew within him.
So, you brought us to Rowan like this. We can't go on without his cooperation, right?
Elandra confirmed to Martis. After nodding back at Elandra, Martis turned to face Rowan.
How is it? Have you narrowed it down a bit?
Rowan nodded and said, I want you to take a look at this, as he manipulated the white orb in his hand. Suddenly, the room became dark. Then, a 3D hologram emerged from the circular disc in the center, resembling a manhole. What appeared was a small, scaled-down diorama of Atlia's.
The blue flashing light is the house we are in now.
There was a small blue blinking light, far to the right of the center Poseidon. It was located on the outskirts of a town called Ascension.
Based on the faint information left by the water super dragon, Elandra, the Underwater City Council has narrowed it down to these 5 locations. As I thought, Aqua seems to be somewhere in this Atlias.
5 locations on the diorama began to blink with a strong red light. One is in the northeastern city of Cannon, in Atlias. One is in the northwestern city of Tiduro. One in the southwestern town of Reguia. And 2 lights were flashing in Ascension. One of them is located above Poseidon. Why hasn't it been found yet, even though it's been narrowed down this much? Clare interjected.
I don't know. It might be too deep underground to be found, or it could be a mistake in the selection of people. Besides, the crystal element is said to be a legendary entity, and until now, no one has seen the actual thing except for the priest who sealed it back then. Therefore, it is completely unclear how it will manifest.
As Rowan answered, the 3D hologram that had been floating disappeared, and the room became bright again. Everyone was silent. Just because the location is somewhat narrowed down, it doesn't mean that its existence is certain in the first place. Searching for it aimlessly was an overwhelming task. So, Clare spoke up in the silence. How should we find it? We can't use the rebellipes yet, can we? Clare asked, looking up at Martis, who was sitting next to her.
No, it's enough if we can narrow it down to 5 locations. Let's use the rebellipes.
Rowan nodded in agreement with Martis's opinion. What do you plan to do?
Let's split up. We'll divide into groups and head to each of the 5 locations.
Clare clapped her hands at Martis's suggestion. Oh, I see. Then, once everyone is in place and use the rebellipes, then one of us can see where the light is pointed. Martis nodded. But, said Ramal, and unusually expressed his opinion.
If there is no chosen one in the spot, we can't find the crystal element, right? Then, even if a location is indicated, it will be a problem if Chris isn't there, won't it?
Hearing that, Clare sighed. Yeah, that's true. If Chris wasn't there, it would be pointless in the end. Martis shook his head.
Of course, only the chosen one could find the aqua. The purpose of using the rebellipes is primarily to identify the location. Once confirmed, we will ride the Atomasker and go to the identified location together. Besides, we, who are not underwater dwellers, cannot dive to the seabed to search.
Oh, that's true. But then, while the rebellipes' light is pointing, isn't there a chance that the underwater dwellers or dark forces could see it too?
That is certainly possible. Therefore, while contacting with the Oromaris, Chris needs to activate the rebellipes as soon as everyone is in position. And once someone has confirmed it, it will be necessary to immediately retract the light of the rebellipes.
Martis said, looking at Chris. Feeling the hopeful gaze directed at him, Chris felt his palms sweat with nervousness. To reassure Chris, Rowan said,
Moreover, the perfect time to execute the plan will come soon.
Rowan explained about the timing of the operation.
Currently, there are many visitors from the surface world coming to Atlias. During that time, fireworks organized by the surface dwellers are held regularly in Ascension. And while the fireworks are taking place, the Solumen across all of Atlias will be temporarily blocked. In other words, the sky will darken. If we time the activation of Rebellipies for that moment, we should be able to do it without being noticed.
When will the fireworks go off?
Sana asked from the side.
It should be soon. The broadcast will start, so let's wait for that. Even after the broadcast begins, there will still be plenty of time to head to our respective posts.
Chris thought, feeling that they were still so carefree even at a time like this. Is it always like this for people in a world without a sense of time? After that, it was decided that each person would choose their respective posts. Martis and Rowan are at Poseidon. Clare is at the square on the western edge, another point of Ascension. Elandra heads to the northwestern city of Taduro. Ramal heads to the southwestern town of Reguia. And Chris, Sana, and Bibi head to the northeastern town of Cannon. Due to Rowan's suggestion that it would be better to activate the Rebellipies in a place where not many people can see, it was decided that Chris would go to a less populated town. Since Rowan does not have the Oromarus, he will go together with Martis. To leave Ascension and go to another city, it was necessary to have a flying ship like the one Enobos provided. You don't need to worry about that, Rowan said.
I've arranged for a ship through Alucia's connections. I told them that a guest from the underground city is here, and they were happy to agree when I mentioned wanting to show them around.
After that, everyone displayed the cityscape in Oromarus and simulated the route to their destination. The area where Chris and Sana were stationed, Cannon, was not very far from the destination from the dock. Since the path was simple, both Chris and Sana felt relieved that they would likely arrive without any problems. They also tested the Alnect feature that connects everyone simultaneously in Oromarus and made preparations. Rowan said, "Please relax until the broadcast starts," and guided the group to the guest room on the lower floor. The guest room was fully equipped with everything, including a rapumo, portal, margarium, and a kitchen.
These were all provided from the central office of the TOs. When I naturalized as an underwater citizen, they also left this as a farewell gift for me.
Rowan gazed into the air, reminiscing about those times. At that moment, Alucia and Lamek arrived with drinks and snacks on a tray. After placing them on the table, Rowan thanked the two of them.
Well then, take your time,
Rowan said as he left the guest room with Alucia and Lamek.
Chris, may I have a moment?
Martis called out to Chris, who was seated at the kutela.
I would like you to remember the Cantarmel that activates and deactivates Rebellipies.
Chris nodded and stood up.
The Cantamel I'm about to tell you should not be recited. If you recite it now, it will activate.
Martis said after moving to the corner of the room.
Okay.
Chris nodded with a serious expression.
First, the Cantamel that will be activated is Adasire e Aqua. Is that clear? Adasire e Aqua.
Martis pronounced the spell-like word, Cantarmel, slowly so it could be clearly understood.
Next, the deactivate Cantamel is Fuga. I repeat, Fuga.
As the deactivate Cantamel slowly repeated, Martis said, "Is that all right?" Chris repeated both Cantarmels in his head.
If you forget, you can also check with Oromarus. Besides, since we are connected through Alnect, you can ask right there if needed.
Hearing this, Chris felt relieved. Given the importance of the mission, It would be a disaster if he forgot the Cantarmel at a critical moment. When Chris returned to Kutela, Sana asked, "Are you okay?"
Yeah, maybe.
Chris's response prompted Clare to shoot a sharp glance at him. "Come on, be serious, it's on you, you know." Realizing the truth in those words, Chris steeled himself. It might not just be their fate at stake, but that of humanity and the Earth as well. "Well, the responsibility is significant, but that's the fate of the chosen ones. Besides, we're here too, so it's going to be okay." Claire smiled to encourage Chris, who was feeling overwhelmed.